Hi, I'm Chris Bou Saeed. I'm a Los Angeles criminal defense attorney who defends people charged with various sex-related crimes, including pimping, pandering, and human trafficking. Welcome to CBS Law, where we deliver results, not promises. What I'm going to do is first go over some common charges related to pimping, pandering, human trafficking, go over successful defenses we employ for our clients charged with pimping, pandering, or human trafficking, and I'll go over some common sense measures you can take if you ever find yourself being investigated, charged with, or arrested for pimping, pandering, or human trafficking. First, let's start with pimping. Pimping is a violation of Penal Code Section 266H. What constitutes a violation of pimping is one, that someone knew another was performing services as a prostitute, and second, that that person charged with the crime received proceeds related to the other person's actions as a prostitute. That is a felony crime. It carries with it really severe consequences upon conviction. A low term of 3 years in state prison, a middle term of 6 years in state prison, and a high term of 8 years in state prison. It's also a strike offense. Now, some successful defenses that we often employ in pimping cases involve one, that there was no prostitution happening, or second, that my client wasn't receiving any proceeds from the prostitution, or third, that there simply was no pimping happening. Often in these cases, we have to utilize my investigator to interview not only the witnesses, the alleged prostitutes, but also the surrounding circumstances regarding the operation related to prostitution that the police say that my client was profiting off of. Oftentimes my clients, even if there is a prostitution operation happening, they are low-level or bit employees, maybe responsible for administrative tasks, so forth and so on. Or in some instances, there isn't some commercial operation of prostitution occurring. Rather, there's just private arrangements between two individuals who are agreeing to perform whatever actions or whatever that are completely independent of my client. What's really important is that the investigator or expert witnesses we use, sometimes cultural or sociological experts, are able to show that either my client didn't have knowledge of what was occurring or was completely independent of it and wasn't involved in any exchange of money or benefits for a sex act. When it comes to pandering is a little bit different. It's a violation of Penal Code Section 266I. And what it involves, that's a felony, is that someone persuaded another, either through fraud, deceit, force, fear, coercion, to act as a prostitute, that they intended for the other person to act as a prostitute, and they received proceeds from the prostitution. Similar to pimping, oftentimes clients are completely independent of any type of private arrangement between individuals or are just administrative bit players at a larger establishment, whether it be a bar or a restaurant, and they simply had no knowledge of what was occurring behind closed doors or between two private individuals, or there was no persuasion, there was no force or fear or coercion or duress, but rather it was just completely consensual behavior, completely independent of my clients. In regards to the consequences for pandering, similar to pimping, it is a felony offense where upon conviction, the low term is 3 years in state prison, the middle term is 6 years in state prison, and the high term is 8 years in state prison. Now I'd like to talk to you about human trafficking. If you're under investigation, charged with, or have been arrested for human trafficking, that's a violation of Penal Code Section 236.1. The consequences of human trafficking are enormous. Upon conviction, the low term is 8 years of state prison, the middle term is 14 years of state prison, and the high term is 20 years of state prison. How someone violates Penal Code Section 236.1, human trafficking, is first that someone deprived the liberty of another. In other words, using force or fear or a threat or coercion overwhelmed the other person's free will. Second, that the person intended the victim to commit an act of prostitution. Often what we see in these cases are our clients are completely independent of any private arrangement between individuals in regards to their sexual relations. In other words, they're bit players working at an establishment, whether it be a restaurant or a bar, and have no knowledge that there's any private arrangements between individuals relating to sexual services. Which brings me to another common defense, and that relates to the deprivation of liberty. Oftentimes, when there are private arrangements between individuals regarding sexual services, it's consensual. May not be moral, may not be your view of ethical, but there's nothing illegal about it as it relates to the client. In other words, there was no deprivation of liberty. There was no forcing of someone to do something. There was no violence or force or fear or coercion or duress. And it's extremely important that you have an attorney that can evaluate those elements and determine the evidence there that the prosecution is relying on and whether that evidence actually constitutes proof beyond a reasonable doubt, or rather there's another alternative explanation that also fits in with the evidence that would lead a reasonable jury to conclude that you are not guilty of the allegations. To effectuate not guilty verdicts in cases involving pimping, pandering, or human trafficking, we often use investigators. The investigators not only interview the players involved, whether it be the witnesses or the alleged victims, but they also gather evidence related to the establishment where it's said to have occurred, evidence related to how our clients were actually involved, whether it be tangentially or centrally in regards to the operation of the establishment, and whether there was actually any evidence related to my client's knowledge of what was occurring at the establishment. So, if you find yourself being investigated, charged, or arrested for pimping, pandering, or human trafficking, there are some common sense measures you can take to protect yourself. First and foremost, don't make any statements. Don't make any statements to the police. Don't make any statements to any witnesses, colleagues, alleged victims related to the allegations. Don't post online. What I'm talking about here are Instagram pages, Facebook posts, Twitter posts, TikTok videos. And the reason why you can't make any statements is any statements that you make, whether they be in person, in writing, or via video, can all be used against you in the criminal case. Second, the most important thing that you can do is call CBS Law at 213-800-8005 so we can start investigating your case and building your defense. Because when you call CBS Law together, we'll help you get your life back.